Pace Software, Customer Quick Reference. In this video we're going to go over the Yes optional time clock. First thing we need to do is set up our time clock. This is done by selecting File from the upper left hand side, then selecting Setup, and then going to Time Clock Settings. Under this we have our General Settings. General Settings is going to let you pick the amount of involvement you want your time clock to have in your day-to-day business. In this case, we have our Track Basic Payroll information. This is when your employee is clocking in and clocking out for the beginning and end of day, as well as for his lunch hours. In the middle, we have Time Clock Track by Invoice. This allows you a little more information by also letting you know what invoices they happen to be working on. Then we have our Time Clock Track by Subtotal. This allows you to go into the invoice and see how much time your tech has spent on individual subtotals or individual items. And then you have the Time Clock Track by Labor Item. This brings you even closer to knowing exactly what your tech is doing by keeping track of how much time they've spent on individual labor items inside of a subtotal on a ticket. After we've selected that, we simply exit the setup, and then we can go into our time clock. The time clock is accessed by our general employees by going up to time clock and selecting it, and entering their employee code and entering their password. After that, we see our time clock for, in this case, Scott Miller. We can see that Scott Miller is currently punched in, but is not clocked to a job. Now, these are the jobs that he has worked on as far as invoices throughout the day. After he's completed, or let's say he would like to go on lunch, we simply select non-billed time and go on his lunch break. Then, if we close the system out, it recognizes that he's on lunch. When he comes back in, he will simply select time clock, enters employee code and password. You can see he is currently on lunch. So when we bring him back, he will select non-billed time. Yes, he is off lunch break. Now he will be punched back into the system, and he can go to work. After this, at the time he'd like to clock out for the day, he will simply come back up, select time clock, enter once again his employee code and password, and then select punch out. This will punch him out for the end of day processing. And once again, if I close the system out and open it back up, it'll show that he is now punched out and no longer in the system. It also shows the hours and what he did that day.